Woohoo! Yeah, you're on the Hillbilly Voodoo channel. Today we're going to take this chunk of rebar and these random pieces of round stock and we're going to make some jewelry out of them. Stick around, see what type of Hillbilly Voodoo we got to do to make this stuff work. Okay, well, some of you probably don't know that YouTube doesn't exactly pay the bills, so I do have some side gigs on the go, and one of them is making jewelry. And during a recent show that I went to, somebody decided that they needed my tools more than I needed them, and they decided to liberate them, take them home. Don't worry, I know who they are. They'll have a bad day sooner or later. But anyways, I need to make myself a new ring mandrel and a new step mandrel. I know this is going to be a little different than most of my videos for some of my subscribers, but as you know from my last video, I kind of did a little bit of an incident and have some broken ribs and cracked vertebrae, so I got to kind of tone it down a little bit here. So we'll show you how I make my ring tools. Not that I have to make them very often, because the last mandrel I've had for, probably 30 years. So anyways, these are, well, this is just a chunk of old rebar. I believe it's 1 inch, and another chunk of random round stock, and the end off of a torsion bar, like front suspension torsion bar out of a safari van. So we're going to pick some of these materials here. I think we're going to start out with the torsion bar out of the safari van because that's a spring steel. And we're also going to use a chunk of that rebar. The round stock that I have there is pretty big around, so I don't really want to use that to carve down a mandrel. And for those of you that are wondering, that noise in the background is the wood stove we built, and it is chooching and chonging away there. And finally got some pipe going up to the roof. Haven't got the holes plugged in the wall yet, but she's warming the place up a bit. You probably still see my breath here a little bit because, yeah, I just started it and it's going to take a while to heat up this big, huge, what, 18-foot ceilings in here, I believe we have? 16-foot ceilings. Yeah. So anyways, what is a ring mandrel? I'm sure some of you are asking, well, what the hell is it? What is this dumbass talking about now? A ring mandrel is something that you more or less form a ring around. This is for sizing rings. It's got numbers on there. Tells you what size your rings and stuff are. But it's made of aluminum. It's got these weird little grooves in there where the numbers are, and you can't really form anything around it because it's made of aluminum. You're going to be hammering and whacking on stuff. So I need to make one of these, or similar to this, not without these steppy ridges in it, but I need to make a smooth one out of steel that I can hammer against. So let's grab one of these pieces. Like I say, I think we're going to start out with this one. It'll give us a good thing to hold on to, and we're going to start tapering it from this end that way. Now, as you can see, my thumb is pretty large. That is usually, well, my thumb is larger than pretty much anybody out there's hands. Like, I think the largest number on this mandrel here is a, what size is that? Size 15, and as you can see, my thumb is much larger than that mandrel. So average people, they don't have that big around the fingers. So as you can see, yeah, even my index finger is much larger around than, I got big giant meat hooks, put it that way. So we're going to make our ring mandrel here that we're going to be hammering on, probably down to, I think, about the, I would say about the 14 or 13 size mark, because that's usually the average large ring that I make. So enough yapping. Let's stick this thing in the lathe here and see if we can actually turn this metal down. I have annealed this piece of steel at a previous point, How do I anneal stuff? I stick it in the wood stove, let it heat up red hot. When fire goes out, ultimately it cools down, it normalizes it. So that's why it's all rusty and crusty and gross looking. But anyways, let's stick this thing in the lathe and see if we can build a ring mandrel out of it. Well, let's see if we can mount this piece of torsion bar up here in the lathe. I'm going to try to slide it in past the little knobby part here so that I can keep that thing there for like a grip. If I can get it in past the jaws far enough and then turn down the outside end, then that'll be a good thing. And if not, well then I guess we're going to have to figure out some other way of doing this. And it kind of looks like it's in there. Now I have my top slide here set to 1.5 degrees. You're like, why 1.5? Well, that's a pretty good taper. Most of your like tapers on your Morrison tapers, they're at a 1.5 degree kind of thing. So I figured Morrison taper is a nice, good, gradual taper, and I'm going to start slowly turning this down. I have my compound right now locked off, so I'll have to loosen that. So we can turn that. Well, let's get this thing fired up here and see what's going to happen. Well, we got our mandrel turned down to a point here where I think we're going to have to stop because we can't go any farther that way, and it's turned down to a fairly good size. It should be, it's a good average for rings. Now what we have to do is polish this, because as you can see, yeah, our finish is pretty good, but any tiny little scratch, mark, or anything like that will show up on the inside of the ring. When you slide your ring over here and you start whacking, it will transfer anything that, well, is on here will be transferred to the inside of the ring, and then you'll just have to do more polishing on the ring, which polishing sucks. So we're going to start out with some sandpaper at about, I would say 600 grit, and we're going to work it up to about 1,000. Now when you're working with your hammer and stuff, you're going to slip and you're going to miss the ring and you're going to whack this. Sometimes you'll need to repolish it and stuff. I obviously did not anneal this steel very well because it's still pretty hard, so I'm not going to have to harden it, that's for sure. But anyways, I'll start polishing away here, and I'll show you between the different grits of how it looks. And that right there is 600. Still got some scratches in there. So we're going to go down to 800 and see what that turns out like. Now that right there is polished to 800, and there's still a few little scratches in there, but nothing that'll snag your fingernail. I could probably go down to 1,000, but like I said before, polishing sucks and I just don't want to do it anymore. I'm going to flip this around and see if I can clean up the rust and stuff that's on this part of the mandrel, and we'll call that a thing. I've flipped our mandrel around here and I've clamped it in the jaws with a chunk of paper towel, shop rag, whatever you want to call it. I cleaned up most of the rust here. Now I was going to turn off the grippies, the splines off of the end of the shaft, but you know, after grabbing onto that, it's kind of nice because it doesn't slip around in your hand and you can turn it. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave them on there. That's actually kind of a good thing. I'm not going to polish this up because, like I say, a little bit of grippage is a good thing. And you're not going to be working up in here anyways. The farthest you'll work the ring is probably onto this area here. So we're going to pull that thing out of there and call that a new ring mandrel. Now I also need to make a step mandrel. So let's go take a look at the materials that we have there and see what we're going to make that step mandrel out of. Now here's our new forming mandrel up against our measuring mandrel. I guess it's not really a mandrel, it's just for measuring, but same idea kind of thing. So it gives you an idea of what we just built. Now we need to build a step mandrel. Now what a step mandrel is it goes for a distance, steps up, goes for a distance, steps up, goes for a distance. And you can wrap your materials around it on a flat plane instead of a tapered plane like this one. So you can wrap it around and create a perfect hammered ring instead of having a bit of a taper and then having to flip it around. Yeah, you guys probably get where I'm going with this. Now, this is that big chunk of rebar that we have here, and we'll obviously have to turn the bumpies off of that. So once we turn the bumpies off, we could probably get, oh, let's see here. Oh, that's down under the bumpies, and then we're probably going to need a little bit more material, but you see there? So yeah, that's about a, oh God, my measurements are all messed up. That's 3 centimeters or 30 millimeters is, yeah, somewhere around there. Now my measurements on this mandrel here were all screwed up too, so let's see what we ended up with on the size here. Can we see that? 20, so we'll say 25 millimeters. Yeah, or just under an inch. Can you see that? I can't see that. My eyes are fuzzy and I can't tell. I'm looking at the screen here and I can't tell if it's in focus or if my eyes are not in focus. Yeah, getting old is kind of a weird thing, guys. So anyways, I'm gonna chop, I would say about, let's go, a foot. No, that's too much. Let's take 10 inches because we're gonna have probably 3 steps on this, maybe 4. Maybe we won't have to turn the bumpies off of the end because that'll give us some grippage. Yeah, that's probably a good thing. We'll keep the bumpies on the one end for some grippage. And we'll have about that much sticking out there, so that's about 6 inches. yeah, let's cut that off and see what we can make out of that. So for those of you out there that are being kind of spastic right now and thinking that we're not working on the ultimate ATV, yeah, we're still doing that. But like I said, I gotta kind of take it easy here for a bit. So that's one of the front ribs that we started on last time with the computer aided design, and well, it's formed up. Wow, we got to make 3 more, and then we'll get to that part. But yeah, let's cut this chunk of rebar here so that we can make some jewelry out of rebar. Yeah, that's kind of funny. So let's go. We do that. Now let's cut it out a foot. Like my marking utensil. My pen happens to be on the floor, and like I said, my back friggin' hurts like crazy, so I'm not gonna bend over and pick it up. And of course our metal had to land on the floor too, so we're gonna have to bend over anyways, pick that up. That's kind of funny. I was saying to my wife the other day, I wish I had enough money to pay somebody to bend over for me. And the look that she gave me, it was like she was gonna slap the shit right out of me. And then I realized kind of what I said, but after I explained it to her, it wasn't some kind of weird sexual perverted thing. It was the reality that my arms are a long ways away from that ground and everything ends up landing on the floor, and I have to decide whether I actually need it enough to bend over and pick it up. Yeah, kind of funny, hey? So let's go stick this in the lathe and make a step mandrel out of it. We got our chunk of rebar clamped here in the jaws. I stuck about enough inside the jaws for a handle. Then we're going to turn the bumpies off of the outside of here. Got our live center in the end. The bearing in my live center has decided that it's not going to be very nice, and it's kind of wobbling a little bit, so hopefully we can true this up enough that with this wobbly live center. I didn't wedge it in there too hard, so maybe it'll just spin like a dead. Yeah, the bearing's screwed anyways, but we're going to try to knock all the bumpies off of this first, and then we're going to do about an inch step till we get up to whatever level we turn the bumpies off of. That made sense? Sure, kind of made sense. Now that we got the bumpies turned off of this rebar, we're going to measure out from the end here. And we're going to go, let's say we'll go 1.5 inches. I'm going to make a mark there at 1.5 inches. And we are going to turn from this direction back this way. Till we get to that mark. We're going to leave this flat spot there. So we will probably turn a total of 1 millimeter, which for those of you that No, not 1 millimeter, sorry, 5 millimeters. So that's about that much. So we're going to turn a total of 5 millimeters off of this. Leave that at that height, and then we will go out another 1.5 inches, turn 5 millimeters. You get what I'm going. We're gonna step it. It's gonna go like that, and then like that, that kind of idea, right? So let's do that. I don't know how much of this I'm gonna be able to film and sit on my chair and turn without everything being in the way, but we'll try this out. Well, now that we got all our steps turned in there, we're going to flip this around and kind of round off the back side. This type of mandrel doesn't necessarily have to be polished as much, because when we do hammering on this one, we hammer on it like big time. So anything that you're making that's going to be hammered on, or we just use it for wrapping the materials around. But anyways, this type I've always just, yeah, there's no sense in polishing it because you end up whacking it and dinging it and having to sand it out anyway. So we're going to flip this around, round off the back side of it so there's no sharp burrs or anything that I'm going to hurt myself on. And then we'll test the tools, I should say, out and see how they work. So now that we got our two tools built here, let's see if they're going to work. Now, for the mandrel, the ring mandrel, with just a chunk of soldered together. What is that? Let me put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing here. It's just a chunk of soldered together copper jump ring. So it's super soft. Use it to form over. Looks like it's going to work. Now, work the joint a little bit. Makes our ring almost perfectly round. Now, if you want to make a ring bigger or smaller or whatever, there's forming hammers and other ways to do it. This is not a ring tutorial or any of that crap. This is just showing me replacing the tools that I probably shouldn't have had to replace. So that's obviously going to work. Now, what I use the step mandrel for mostly is forming steel, or not steel, my jewelry metal, copper, aluminum, silver, not too often gold, because, yeah, I'm a hillbilly, and unless I dig it out of the ground, I'm probably not going to use it. So that's kind of more or less what that mandrel's for. or it's also for, let's see what we've got here. Forming copper, forming silver. Let's twist up a ring here. We'll do something really basic. Maybe you guys might find this entertaining. If you want to do a real ring tutorial or anything like that, there's a crap load of people on the internet doing it. I'm definitely not the patient enough one to be teaching people to do jewelry, that's for damn sure. But yeah. Just do some basic ugly here. Now, like I say, this type of mandrel gets hammered on quite a bit because you want to work harden most of your non-ferrous metals so they don't move around and they don't change shape and sizes. And there you go, real time, cheesy little ring. Depending on where you are, what time of the year, and what type of tourists are hanging around, that's probably a $5 ring, maybe $2 ring. Like I say, depending on what type of tourists or people or, yeah, whatever. Anyways, that's a ring mandrel and a step mandrel in its creation, I guess. If anybody else is wondering, this is some of the stuff that I do. Just that one is bronze, and I believe that one is gold. Like I said, I don't do gold very often, but that was commissioned by somebody. And that there is copper. Those aren't really rings, but you get where I'm going at. So kind of a little bit of a weird video for you guys this week, but it is what it is. So until next time, use what you got to make what you want, and I'll see you later.